You've been busy all day. It's now time to get update from the world of business, and it happens right here on Business Incorporated. Here's what's coming out for you on the program. It's good news in Nigeria as the Port Harcourt Refinery in South Nigeria resumes operations. Another good news from the Republic of Congo as it gets approval to get $43 million from the IMF. It's a couple of days to Christmas. We'll go to Uganda and see how they're preparing for Christmas. Good afternoon, I'm Ini John Mekwa. We'll start right with the market as we normally would do. Yesterday, the NGX crossed that border over 73,000. The good news is sustaining that sentiment at intraday, 0.39%. There we see at 73,659.88. South Africa has slipped. They've been doing the green since Monday, but unfortunately, Jersey is in the red at intraday Thursday at 0.62%. Egypt is also in the red at intraday, more than 1%, a dangerous place, 1.36%, 24,500. Kenya, we see a recovery there, even though looking really slim and lean at 90.37. But at least there's a recovery at the close of trade. Wednesday's trade, 0.42% in Kenya. Well, talking about Nigeria, we see that on Wednesday, that's the closing numbers. The closing bell at the NGX was a special one as the Made of Africa Award was held.
Thank you very, very much for that. And let me now read out what is the list.
MTN Nigeria Communications PLC, VFD Group PLC, Cardinal Stone Securities and Chapel Hill Denham, all friends of the house, were big winners at that event, the Made of Africa Awards, organized by the Nigerian Exchange Limited. The Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, Mr. Temi Kokwala, noted at the event that the annual Made of Africa Awards is aimed at encouraging more listings, transactions, better compliance, and stimulating innovation in the capital markets.
The Made of Africa Awards. It's an annual event that we do to celebrate our key intermediaries, our key trading partners, to celebrate what were the key milestones for the year, what were the key wins for the year in question. Also a year to go back to the basics of our market. Our market is built on compliance, adherence to rules, and to lay down protocols. So what we did today was really to just celebrate many of our market participants in that sort of framework. We had 13 winners of several awards, from the most compliant trading house to the most compliant listed company to the equity trader of the year, which is a significant landmark award for us and category, all the way to what was the best listing for us this year on the several asset classes that we have. We also had a few special recognitions. We recognized the Debt Management Office for all of the contributions to the capital market. Lagos State also was recognized for the depth that they continue to add to the capital markets on the fixed income side. And overall, just a day to look back, as I said, at the year that we've had. The year in 2023 has been, I think, a very, very successful year for the capital markets. If you look at our market this year, performance is about 40% in local currency terms, very strong. If you add that to the past 3 years, it means then that over the last 4 years, every single year, our market has ended in positive territory. 3 years ago was over 50% return. Also, one of the things that made us very happy this year is the participation by local investors. A lot of the foreign capital flowed out of Nigeria, but what we've seen is a local, very strong demand for all of that, and this, I think, is a thing of success as well. So overall, it's just a good day for us and for the market as we've recognized many of these participants.
Yes, with less than 5 trading days left in the year, Mr. Kokola can certainly be proud because the market at this time is still rallying and the bullish sentiment is still top on the mind of investors. Let's go to all the markets now. Go to the Middle East where we see, unfortunately, the flip. Most of them are negative. Abu Dhabi down 0.11%, Dubai down 0.43%, Saudi Arabia down 0.70%. The only gainer at intraday for the Middle East is Qatar. Qatar is up 0.79%. Now, let's move away from that, at least for a bit, and talk about the newly elected Argentinian president. Javier Milei has unveiled several new measures that will deregulate Argentina's economy, which has been crippled by decades of debt and financial mismanagement. Well, Europe is interested in this. That's why Emily is joining us from Berlin to give us their perspective. Hi, Emily. Good afternoon. So tell us the perspective of Europe on what's happening in Argentina.
Thanks for having me, Ini. So Javier Milei announced changes to more than 300 rules, and in some cases eliminated rules, by emergency presidential decree. Milei argues that this is the only solution to Argentina's economic woes. He says that the current regulations have stilted economic growth. Historically, Argentina has been Latin America's third biggest economy, but inflation levels in the country have surpassed 160% this year. Its reserves are in the red. It has a $44 billion loan program with the IMF and has missed payment deadlines. So for those who voted for him, which was around 56% of the country, Milei is coming through on his campaign promises. He ran on a campaign that promised drastic measures, some would even call them extreme, to reform the country's economy. He pledged to slash spending, taxes, and regulations, and also to replace the Argentinian peso with the US dollar.
And we also see that he's determined. I think he's already devalued the currency by 50%. What are the other measures?
Well, Milei is eliminating a law that regulates rent, something that many Argentinians have expressed concern about. An estimated 40% of Argentinians are living in poverty, and this will only make things more difficult for them. He's also getting rid of rules that prevent the privatization of state enterprises as a way, he says, to boost exports and investment. And he's announced that he'll be halting all new public construction projects and also suspend state advertising for 1 year. The package also includes a series of other deregulatory measures that affect everything from tourism, satellite internet services, pharmaceuticals, wine production, and foreign trade. And earlier this week, Milei's economy minister, Luis Caputo, announced a more than 50% devaluation of the peso, as well as energy and transportation subsidy cuts, which will go into effect in January. And experts say these measures are only going to increase inflation and make life even more difficult for Argentinians, who have come to rely on assistance from the state. And they're keen on making their discontent known. Just hours after Milei made his announcement, which was made in a government gazette at midnight, thousands of people took to the streets to protest the changes. Many organizers are calling on the country's trade unions to declare a general strike.
Well, sounds like he has his hands full, but let's look at investors now.
Well, investors will be monitoring consumer price inflation and trade figures from Hong Kong, and also producer price inflation data from South Korea. And they'll also be keeping an eye on the U.S. equities market, which has stalled despite the falling interest rates, and also U.S. economic data that beat expectations. And on the release of personal consumption expenditures in order to gauge inflation in the country.
Emily, thank you so much for that update. From there, we go to the United States, where stock futures climbed on Thursday morning after the recent market rally took a breather. S&P 500 futures added 0.5%, while the Nasdaq 100 futures advanced 0.56%. Futures connected to the Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed 138 points. That's about 0.4%. The Dow and Nasdaq slipped about 1.3% and 1.5% respectively, to notch their worst sessions since October. Still in the markets, most Asia-Pacific market fell on Thursday after Wall Street dropped overnight, while investors awaited gross domestic product reading and inflation numbers from the United States. However, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index reversed earlier losses to rise 0.1% in its final hour of trade, while the mainland Chinese CSI 300 closed 1.01% up at 3,330.87. In Australia, the S&P AX 200 was down 0.45%, closing at 7,504.1. Japan's Nikkei 225 plunged 1.59% to end at 33,140.47 after nailing a 33-year high on Wednesday, while the topics fell 1% to close at 2,325.98. Both the indexes were dragged lower by safety scandals at automaker Toyota. South Korea's Kospi also dropped 0.55% to finish at 2,600.02, while the small cap Kosdaq shed 0.41% to close at 859.44. Oil prices fell on Thursday on concerns over low demand following a surprise U.S. crude inventory build that outweighed jitters over global trade disruptions and geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. Brent crude futures fell 65 cents, that was 0.8%, to $79.05 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $73.67 a barrel, and that's down 0.7%. Both benchmarks edged up on Wednesday as investors worried about the trade disruptions as major maritime carriers chose to steer clear of the Red Sea route, with longer voyages increasing transport and insurance costs. The U.S. Energy Information Administration had said that the U.S. crude inventory rose by 2.9 million barrels in the week to December the 15th to 443, to 7.7 million barrels. Well, that brings us home to Nigeria, where the Port Harcourt Refinery Company, PHRC Limited, with a combined capacity of 210 barrels a day, has commenced operation. The development comes months after the Minister of State for Petroleum, Senator Heineken Lokobiri, had said that in August that the Port Harcourt Refinery will commence operation in December 2023, and true to his word, it begins today. You remember that in March 2021, the Federal Executive Council approved $1.5 billion to rehabilitate the Port Harcourt Refinery. Accordingly, data show that the Nigerian government has spent 11.35 trillion naira, that's about $25 billion, in the past 10 years on fixing the country's 3 refineries. So you might want to join us tomorrow morning on Business Incorporated to see some of the implication of this refinery resuming operations. Still in Nigeria, the country's unemployment rate has been placed at 4.2%, and that's for the second quarter of 2023. The number was released by the National Bureau of Statistics. This is an increase of 0.1% from the figure recorded in the first quarter of 2023, which was at 4.1%. The labor force participation rate among the working age population remained high at 80.4% for the second quarter. The employment to population was at 77.1%. About 88% of Nigerians were self-employed in the second quarter. Proportion of workers in wage employment in the second quarter was 12%. The unemployment rate in urban areas was 5.9% for the second quarter of the year, and that's an increase from 5.4% in the first quarter. Time-related unemployment in the second quarter was 11.8%. 8% of the working-age population were in subsistence agriculture. Informal employment rate in the second quarter was 92.7%. And this is the third quarter of results since the National Bureau of Statistics revised and improved its methodology for collecting labor market statistics in the country. Let's take a break now, and then we'll come back. We have more stories for you here on Business Incorporated. Just stay with us. Welcome back to watching Business Incorporated right here on Channels Television. We turn attention to something at the root of food security, and that's the price and supply of fertilizer. Over the past year, the price of 50 kg bag of NPK fertilizer has risen by 112.5% to 17,000. It came all the way from 8,000. Well, of course, we know this is a threat to food security, which is what Nigeria struggles with, and even other countries on the continent. Now with the Red Sea tension, we wonder how many things will be affected, since it's a major route for import. Now let's talk about some of the possible impacts of this with Halima Adedinro, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company. Good afternoon, Halima.
Good afternoon, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can hear you. Good to see you again, virtually though, second time this week. So this increase in the price of fertilizer, well, everything is increasing at this time. I guess we should not be surprised. And you don't have a lot of alternatives for fertilizer, especially for food.
So it is true that the price of fertilizer has increased drastically. And according to NBS2, it's also true that food inflation is one of the drivers of year-on-year inflation in Nigeria. And we'll see that fertilizer is one of the inputs for farm production and farm activities, which will in turn determine the yield of farm produce in general. But if we look at the causes of this increase in fertilizer, we'll see that one, it is because of the inputs being used, ammonia and phosphate. The price has really increased, and this is feeding into the price of fertilizer. And not only that, China is one of the largest exporter of fertilizer. And for now, they've placed a restriction. So there's now an export quota on fertilizer, because they want to try and support their domestic economy. So because of this, the supply has really reduced to the global market, which is pushing up the price. Then not only that, we would see that there's a correlation between natural gas price and fertilizer. Reason being that natural gas is one of the components used for ammonia, which is used for fertilizer. So whenever we see fluctuation in the price of natural gas, it will also filter into the price of fertilizers. So these are some of the things affecting the price of fertilizer in globally and even in Nigeria. So, but there are so many alternatives that can be used, and one of them is decomposed animal waste, which is called manure. It can be used as an alternative. Not only that, eggshell can also be crushed. It can be used as an alternative. And also we can use food scraps can also be converted to nutrients for agricultural purpose.
So, but back here in Nigeria, we do have the Dangote urea fertilizer plant, and we thought, since that is home, then that should help us, close some of the gaps of import.
Exactly. It should help, and it's a good development though. But like I rightly said, it is not a silver bullet, because fertilizer is not only the input that is needed in to boost agricultural productivity in Nigeria. There are so many other factors too that surrounds that, which are the quality of seedlings that is being used for agricultural products. And also the post-harvest loss is way too high in Nigeria. It's about 40%. So we need to improve on our storage facilities and logistics, so that from the farm gates to the production points where farm produce is being used for finished products, it will reduce, the wastage will reduce, and it will help boost productivity. And not only that, the payment system too is very, very, very poor, because farmers do not really get their payment in time. So this, if there is a prompt payment, it will help them to buy more seedlings in order to use for the next harvest. So apart from fertilizer, apart from the high cost of fertilizer, there are so many other things that is affecting the productivity of agricultural activities in Nigeria. So it's a good development. It will help in the supply of fertilizer in Nigeria, but it is not the only component that is needed to boost agriculture.
Yeah, well, it looks like Nigeria still has a whole lot to do. Halima, thank you so much. Halima Dediron, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company.
You're welcome.
Let's go to Uganda now, where hundreds of Ugandans are crossing the Busia border into Kenya to buy cheap goods, especially textiles, ahead of the Christmas holidays. Traders and residents of Bugiri districts in eastern Uganda say that they prefer textiles from Kenya because they are relatively cheaper compared to the nearest trading hub in Uganda district and other Ugandan towns. The latest development is in sharp contrast to the past, when Kenyans used to flock into Uganda to buy textiles. Such a shift in business is partly attributed to the falling value of the Kenyan currency against the Ugandan shilling, which has made goods cheaper in Kenya compared to Uganda. So some Ugandans will actually have a good Christmas because of the neighboring town in Kenya. Now, the executive board of the International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF, has completed the fourth review of the Republic of Congo's arrangements under the Extended Credit Facility, ECF, which was approved by January 21st, 2022. The completion of the review allows for the immediate disbursement of SDR of $32.4 million, that's about $43 million, bringing total disbursement under the ECF to SDR at $259.2 million. This financing from the IMF will continue to help the authorities implement their development policies, maintain macroeconomic stability, and strengthen economic recovery amid high inflation, including food, volatile oil prices, and tightening financial conditions. Still staying with the IMF has approved $187 million transfer to Zambia as the Southern African country faces fresh setbacks to an already prolonged debt restructuring process. The fund, which had held back a payment earlier this year due to delays in Zambia's deal with official creditors, has decided that it had more than enough grounds on a separate deal with the bondholders to allow this transfer. Zambia external debts have reached $8.7 billion in June 2023, and that's compared to $8.9 billion in the previous quarter. That's for Zambia external debts. Controversy brewing in Kenya as the country's Auditor General has revealed that the Treasury funded Kenya's Airways to the tune of 16.27 billion shillings without a loan agreement or recovery mechanism last year. In a special audit on the Treasury's use of public funds under the Article 223 of the Constitution, which allows the withdrawal of funds to use for emergency purposes that had not been factored during budget formulation, the Auditor General, Nancy Katungu, faulted the Treasury for releasing the funds without an agreement and without a clear plan on how it will get it back. The government holds 48.9% stake in the national carrier. The utility firm connected 318.217 new customers to the grid under the period. Well, that's how much we can take on Business Incorporated today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Mini John Mekwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.